Welcome in to another Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I am joined, as always, by Jared Good. Jared, how we doing?
We're doing good. It's fun to talk on a podcast night after the Timberwolves win by about 50. Well, it was only about 30, but they were up by 50 at one point, I think. So that was kind of fun.
They were.
It just slacked the Magic, but it's still the Magic, so nothing too exciting.
Yeah. You would have that win would have sounded a little more exciting earlier in the season, back when they had back before the trade deadline. It might have sounded a little more exciting, but still, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And we're also joined by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
Doing well.
Awesome.
Timberwolves are progressing nicely. Let's just keep it moving into the offseason.
Absolutely. And let's start with what Jared mentioned at first. Minnesota Timberwolves, we're recording this on a Sunday, so they just really put a beating on the woeful Orlando Magic, who, to their credit, have won a couple games lately. I think they beat the Pistons, and they beat a little bit ago. They beat the Grizzlies somehow. I don't know how that happened, but the Wolves do get the win tonight, 128-96, and really, I know that sounds like a 30-point win, but it really wasn't even that close. I mean, the Wolves had control throughout the duration, and Jared, it was just nice to just destroy somebody from the beginning to the end, wasn't it?
It was really nice to just run out of the gates and just absolutely destroy somebody. One thing that I do want to talk about on the Magic side of the ball is Mo Bamba's been getting a lot of run for them recently, and it's been kind of a long wait to see him get some run. He's actually had a pretty good week. I mean, he didn't do squat against us, but it was still kind of fun to see him get a little bit of run finally after, I think he's been in the league, 2 or 3 years without getting much. So good to see him finally get a shot on the Magic side. But yeah, it was fun to kill him tonight, and yeah, I mean, it was over before it started for the most part.
Yeah, I think they had in the second quarter, I believe they had a 37-point lead. Or no, second half, they had a 37-point lead. I think it got pushed all the way to 40 at one point. And by the way, I don't know if I'm the only one, but it's hard for me whenever I see Mo Bamba on the court to not think of that Sheck West song. But that's just me. So really, what I want to say is, for tonight's game, the Timberwolves, they looked really like, and I know they were playing the Magic, it looked like a blueprint for next season. It kind of did. Because you had Anthony Edwards, 16 points, 10 rebounds, Karl Anthony Towns, 27 and 9, and D'Angelo Russell hitting threes, 27 and 6. Chris, what do you think of tonight's game, and did it not look like give us hope for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to play Orlando for an entire season. Like, you give me that, and we're gonna set some records. Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was good to see, and more importantly, it's good to see a team that's been competing go up against a lesser quality team and destroy them. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. If we're gonna be a team that's a playoff team, and again, we've said from the beginning that we're about a 500. We should have been about a 500 team this year, and we're holding out about that when everybody's close to healthy, except for Beasley, obviously. Yeah, when you play a team like Orlando, who is playing all these young guys, 10-day contract guys, you should destroy them, and that's what we did. We're better. We're a better team, top to bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I sent a chat to you guys earlier today, and I was, because you got to talk about with the Timberwolves right now with the potential of tanking, and I know we've talked about that on the show. And I basically sent a chat to you guys saying I've run it down a million times in my head. I don't think, unless you sit Towns, Russell, and Edwards, I don't think there's any way we lose this game tonight.
Right.
And
Nas went to 45.
Yeah.
Like, we could have beat him with Nas, and well, if we had McDaniel, if we had Jaden, it would have been fun to watch a squad like that. Like just let Nas and Jaden and maybe Noel, like, let those guys just play big minutes.
Mm-hmm.
One
Do you think Vanderbilt could have got double digits if they just gave him a ton of run?
Oh, for sure. He could. I mean, he would have had a Zion Williamson type shot chart, but he could have got it.
One thing that I thought was kind of interesting, just looking back at our schedule, and this isn't the most interesting thing in the world because the NBA plays at a lot faster of a pace and the Timberwolves themselves play at a lot faster of a pace. But we've scored over 100 points in every single game since April 13th. I mean, that's a pretty strong run of good offensive basketball. I mean, we also give up a ton of points normally too. So, I mean, a lot of that has to do with pace of play, but I think it also has to do with the offense kind of molding a little bit around Finch as well. Which
I agree.
Is really nice to see.
I agree. And sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I think I saw our efficiency probably in about that same stretch of time. Our offensive efficiency is like 8th in the NBA right now. Like for the last 15 games or whatever it is, a decent sample size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so something I was going to say about Jared's point about scoring 100 points. It's been nice to score 100 points and be in these games. Like there's been a lot of times this season when, like, I don't know, let's say against the Clippers or something, they'll go be up like 128 to like 80. And then we go on a run at the end because their like second squad is out there and the score looks better. Kind of like what the Magic did a little bit tonight.
Right.
With getting it a little closer tonight, and also to his point about like giving up a lot of points. I mean, we knew that going in, right? We knew that the Timberwolves were going to score, kind of like the Mavericks of the mid 2000s, right? They were always that team that would score 140 points and give up 139. So, I mean, we kind of knew that going in, but yeah, it's definitely been nice to see this nice run here. And let's go to the next game, this interesting game this week that got a little chippy, the Miami Heat game. I know Chris in particular has some strong opinions about Jimmy Butler. So there was a little back and forth talk between Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns. Basically Jimmy Butler calling Towns weak and saying that I played you already. And I forget his quote. I'm trying to find his quote.
Soft as baby shit.
You're soft as baby poop, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So, but then in the post game comments, Ant basically defended Karl Anthony Towns, saying that it was a grown ass man conversation, and that if there wasn't that rivalry, then there's no competition. But so Chris, I know you've talked about Jimmy Butler before, but your thoughts on the Heat back and forth between Butler and Towns, and obviously with their history, and Ant's comments as well.
I mean, I liked when I think it was best. All the baby poop stuff is what is getting all the press because you heard that pretty loud and clear. But what you didn't hear too loud, unless you listened close, was Cat, what he said back, and all he kept saying back to him was, "Why don't you call Rachel Nichols? Why don't you call Rachel Nichols?" because when the big showdown with Butler and the bench squad versus Cat and Wiggins and the starters happened, Butler happened to have a Rachel Nichols interview later that evening that he just happened to show up at practice that day and happened to put on this big show right before this national interview. Like, come on, dude. It's all a game. It's all an act. It's all him building his brand. Like, whatever. Like, it's weird because you didn't hear any of this chirping when we beat them the last 4 times in a row, like when the Wolves beat the Heat. But now that, they get a win, he's tough guy bringing up this old past, man. Whatever. Like, it's not even worth my time.
And Jared, anything to add on that?
Well, that's just it. You know why he's been so quiet all year is because we've been beating that ass all year long. So, I mean, he kind of finally got a chance to talk, and he did. Whatever. I mean, I'm glad he's gone. Miami is in the play-in tournament. Whoop-de-doo. Do you, my man? I mean, if that's what you're proud of this year, go for it. We're a completely injured team who's going to be a top 5 seed next year, so you can choke on that next year is what I got to say.
Go ahead, Chris.
Jimmy Butler, by the way, is shooting 20% from 3 this year. Like actual statistics.
Jeez.
20%. Like Jared Culver is a noticeably better 3-point shooter than Jimmy Butler. Like real numbers. Like this isn't even opinion. Like this guy's trying to talk, man. Like he gets bailed out by the refs the whole game long and acts like he's a superstar. Like whatever. Like keep it moving. It's fine. But what was really important in this game, in my mind, like to get off the crap talk stuff, was a couple of things that's really been interesting to me the last couple of weeks is what are we going to do with Vanderbilt? Like the way that Finch can dial some of these, really like low level or mid level role players and get them in the exact positions they need to be to like milk all the possible like benefit from them. Jared Vanderbilt has been playing very important basketball for the Timberwolves these last week and a half. Like there was a time that he was, everyone loved him. And then there was a time when he was absolutely trash. And he's back kind of in that, like, what would we do without him kind of range. So that is something that's been interesting. And same with like Wancho and even Okogie, but Okogie can go in my mind. But Wancho, he's finding the right niche for him. So that was something I think that's been important. And it's really been interesting these last couple games, even when Ricky's in there or when D'Lo's in there with Edwards. Edwards is bringing the ball up almost every time, which is kind of interesting. So he's initiating offense almost every time. And I don't know if that's, or at least when I'm noticing it a lot. I don't know if that's just teaching him how to do that and how to just get more ball handling skills and more playmaking skills, which is something I love to see at this point, like training basically. Or maybe I don't know, or maybe that's just something we're gonna have. Like let him get it started and D'Lo play off ball. Just some interesting things.
I think one thing that's really interesting about Vanderbilt, and this is probably 5 or 6 podcasts ago now, where we talked about how his future with the team could be off the bench and being that energizer bunny, the dude that just plays defense and plays hard. He had 5 steals, which I believe were all in the first half in this game, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and he also had 2 blocks. So, I mean, that is what you're going to get out of Vanderbilt. For a team that doesn't play much defense, like being a Wolves fan and seeing that from anybody, I don't care who it is, like you're going to notice it because we don't play defense. So seeing something like that just goes really, really far for a hustle type player is what I would call Jared Vanderbilt at this point. I don't think he's the most skilled guy in the world, but I don't think he has to be looking at his future with the team.
Yeah, and I think that, and yes, Jared Vanderbilt hustles a lot, but I think like you were talking about, Jared, it sticks out a lot more on a team that doesn't play a lot of defense. So you notice it a lot more, like, oh, look at Jared all over the place. To me, Jared Vanderbilt is like a poor man's Dennis Rodman. And believe me, I'm not saying that he will have the same career, the same success, the same whatever as Dennis Rodman, but just the hustle, the tenacity to get after it. I mean, it feels like he's always making life uncomfortable for whoever he's defending or boxing out or whatever, just getting a rebound against, even like a simple defensive rebound for the other team. He makes it more difficult for them. So yeah, it's an interesting question to wonder where Vanderbilt fits in with the team next year. Let's go with this gut feeling. Do you think that Vanderbilt is a member of the squad next year? And we'll start with you, Chris. If you had to pick it right now, do you think he's a member of the squad next year?
I think he is because he's a restricted free agent, and I don't think anyone's going to come to him with a bag that is going to be very impressive. I think it's going to come down to he's going to take whatever we offer. So I think he'll be here on a Rosas special deal, which is like 3 years for next to nothing, every single year is not guaranteed or something like that, you know. But what's crazy is like next year, I think like as is right now, we have 12 players on contract for next year. We need, you know, three more guys or two more guys to meet league minimum roster size. And I think we have like $1.2 million under the repeater tax. Like we're almost completely taxed out for next year. I think we're like at 135, and I think they're saying it might be like 136 and a half for like to go into the luxury tax. So there's going to be a lot of money moved for anything to happen. So I mean, it's possible he'll be one of those guys that'll be cut just because, you know, his salary, even if it's at $2 million, $3 million, a super cheap deal, just might not fit. Like I don't know what's going to happen in the offseason. Rosas is going to have to get pretty inventive. But just straight talent wise and contract wise, restricted free agent Jared Vanderbilt, I don't see why he wouldn't be on the team. Like unless some team says we're going to give you 8 million or something, which I don't see happening.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jared? Gut feeling? Do you think he'll be on the squad?
Gut feeling is yeah. And my reasoning goes back to basically nobody plays defense and he does. So I think we're going to find a way to make the money work. Like Chris was saying, I don't think you would see anything over. I would put it in the 2 to 4 million range. If he's going to be here, someone else offers him more than that, then we're not going to be able to match it for the most part. But it'll be interesting to see what contracts come off the books in a potential well, they wouldn't come off the books, but I think we could free up some money in a trade scenario, if I remember correctly. And Chris might have a better idea with this. Not saying that we're necessarily going to make a trade, but I think there's ways to beat around it and get to where we need to be. And I think Rosas is thinking about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. I think he's definitely got his mind on the off season. I think he's liking what he's seeing with the Timberwolves, particularly right now, and then his mind towards the off season. Chris, you got some?
So I was kicking this around the other night, just trying to figure out how this would work, and I'm really thinking that if we get the first round pick, which of course is a long shot, but if we do, I think it's almost guaranteed that we trade Beasley for like a future first. So if someone's willing to take what is he at, 14 or 15 million, if someone has that cap space, I think it'll be done at the draft so that we don't have to take any money back. And I think we would make that deal for a future first, just mainly to free up that money. Cause I don't know if there's no one's taking Culver for anything, you know, no one's taking Rubio's money for just a draft pick. I wouldn't think, you know, I don't think someone's got 17 million that they're willing to just eat and send us a draft pick. So we're going to have to clear 15 to 20 million somehow if we bring in that rookie. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. If I had to make a prediction, I would say Beasley's gone for, you know, a protected future first, which looks like just a dump, but whatever. It's not like we have a lot into him. We picked him up for almost nothing in that trade. And if we get a future first out of it and salary cap space to sign a top 3 pick, like that's not terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. I think we talked last week kind of about the long-term prospects of, and it was interesting. So obviously I post our highlight episodes on the Facebook page. And I did a preface of it. Like, is Beasley a part of our long-term plans? Can we afford him? And people like went off on me. Like, yeah, we can afford him. He's a part of our team right now. I'm like, that's not what I'm saying at all.
People don't understand. Like, I mean, not to be like snooty, but like a common like fan that watches basketball doesn't understand that just because you got a guy signed under contract for a couple of years, it doesn't mean that like you can afford him. Like, because contracts go up. Like, so like right now his $14 million contract fits. But if next year, a guy like 2 years from now, Culver goes from making 4 million to 8 million. That's a big difference. So like that will push us out into the luxury tax, and somebody's got to leave.
And the contract thinking, or the future of this team could be as simple as, do we get that pick? And if the answer is no, we probably keep Beasley.
Exactly.
It could be as simple as that. And we all talked about last podcast, whether, like we were talking about whether he's a future piece. And I think all three of us agreed that if he's on the team next year, he probably comes off the bench because there's just not enough room to have 4 high caliber volume shooters or scorers on the court at the same time,
Yep. Yeah, so, too many mouths to feed. Like if you can, and I almost think that D'Angelo Russell coming off the bench was almost like a blueprint for what, I mean, obviously they're different players, but it was almost like a blueprint for what potentially Malik Beasley can be next year coming off the bench with the second squad, with guys like Nas and Wancho, if he's there, and who knows what Rosas is going to do in the offseason. But I almost feel like it was kind of a blueprint. We're talking about players that play right now. Let's talk about a player that's not really playing right now, Jake Layman. Now, he did get some minutes tonight, but obviously that was an anomaly because we were beaten up on a JV team. So I honestly thought that Layman, before he got the benching, was playing pretty well. I mean, he's a good cutter. He's good at attacking the basket. He can hit some shots from here and there. And we'll start with you, Jared. Why do you think that Coach Finch has essentially benched Layman? Do you think he just doesn't fit in, or do you think there's more going on?
I think it's just that we're a really deep team. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say that we have all this depth, but I think that we really do. Would I want to see Layman get minutes over a guy like Wancho or Nas? I mean, probably not. And I'm a Jake Layman guy, I want a guy that's athletic and cut and shoot the three. But I mean, Wancho can do those things too, for the most part, and he's a little bit bigger. I mean, I just think I mean, I don't think that Layman's one of those guys that I'm so hot and cold with. Like he can get run and look good, and then he can also, get run and look bad too. Like at the beginning of the season, I thought he was one of the worst players on our team at the beginning of the year. But I think it's just finding the right mold, and he might just not be a part of it because we have so much depth on our bench, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what do you think? Why do you think that Layman isn't playing?
I think that's kind of like dead on. I think he's got it. I mean, when asked even about Noel at one of the press conferences, no, it was either Noel or J-Mac. Chris Finch is like, well, I like not getting him in wasn't like my plan. Like just sometimes, like it's just we got a lot of mouths to feed. And then when he was talking, that's what it was. He was talking. That was about J-Mac. Then when they asked him about him at some point, he's like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to be playing him, but I've got a nice little rotation going right now, and I don't know where he's gonna go. Like, where would we put him in? Mm-hmm. We're feeding 10, 11 guys a night. Like, there's not that many more minutes to fit for another guy. So, I mean, could he be cutting into Wanchos? I'd be fine with that. Could he be cutting into? I mean, yeah, you could pick or choose here or there, but I mean, Wancho's not getting 30 minutes a game either. So, like, you've got to at least be in the game enough to get a rhythm. So you can't be like, oh, work hard for your 4.5 minutes you're playing tonight, So I think, like like Jared said, it's just a matter of we have a lot of decent players.
Mm-hmm. And no team in the NBA is running 13 deep off their bench unless you're the Pistons or the Magic, or like OKC does it too. Yeah, like the teams that are real bad do it, but like we're not real bad as much as people want to think that we are. We're really not.
At full strength, we're not.
Yeah.
Mid-season, yes, we were. Like there was a slog through that really before Carl Anthony, or no, not Carl Anthony. Well, Towns was out and Edwards wasn't what he was now, and yeah,
D'Lo wasn't playing.
Right. Again, we're kind of speaking about next year right now. And so a guy that's coming over for the Timberwolves was just announced, Leandro Bolmaro, who was taken with the 23rd pick next year, last year. And I believe acquired in that Ricky Rubio trade, right? He was that Ricky Rubio trade. We got him in that.
Yeah.
Yep. So he is playing at FC Barcelona right now, but will be coming over next year. Chris, you could say as much or as little as you want about this. You said you knew a little bit about him. What do you know about Leandro Bolmaro and how he'll fit with this team?
So all I know is about just some stuff at the time of the draft I read up on him. Like I'm not going to pretend like I knew about him before the draft. I didn't even see him really on any draft radars. But I know I think he's from Argentina, and I know that, or maybe he's playing down there. But I know that Pablo Prigioni, who's Argentinian, loved the guy, and he gets a lot of respect around the league. So for him to like stick his head out or neck out, and we draft him in the first is pretty important. So back then what I read was he's about 6'6", 6'7", depending on, who knows, maybe a metric system or not. I don't know what the difference is, but all of his numbers are a little bit skewed. But he's a big guy. And he plays point guard basically. He's mainly a lead guard, or at least a ball handling, playmaking guard. And back then I was seeing he was basically known for his defense. Just could defend multiple positions, was just like kind of like an Okogie type where he's just all over the place, like in your face, like going over every cut, like pushing his way through everything, getting a lot of steals, getting a lot of deflections. And now I'm seeing a lot of highlights where he's hitting his shot, because that was his knock. He didn't have a jumper yet. He's kind of a late bloomer. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see, a pass first, defensive minded guard that's got, size to defend a 1 or 2, maybe a 3 in a pinch. Sounds like insurance if J-Mac asks for a lot more money than we want to pay him. Wouldn't be a bad guy to line up next to an offensive-minded point guard like D'Lo for some time, to, some guy who's just going to defend hard and just move the ball around. It's always fun to have these kind of roll of the dice Euro guys that nobody really knows about. I'm all for it.
Could that also be the I'll ask you, Chris, because you're good with GM stuff, but could we cut Layman? Like, is there a way to, I don't know what his contract looks like, but could you swap in Bolmaro for Layman essentially and save some money doing that?
Layman might have like 3.5 mil still guaranteed for next year. I'm not sure. But, even, 28th pick, did you say he was? Something like that?
23rd.
I mean, he's got to be pulling in $2 million. Like that's not a big contract at that deep in the draft. So, yeah, I mean that's still a pretty cheap deal. So it'll be fun to see. Like, yeah, I mean, I think the fact that there's steam that he's coming over here is really going to see what J-Mac is really all about, because he's kind of not really on contract, and he's looked fine. Like, by no means has J-Mac this year been like, man, we need to re-sign this guy. So, I mean, if he's going to ask for more than this guy's asking for, I would take the guy, the fresh face, over a guy we've seen for 2 years and he's just been okay. But yeah, hopefully there's a summer league this year and we see the guy play. I know Jared Culver's going to be in summer league, I heard, so that'll be good.
So stats wise, it isn't necessarily too promising, but I know you mentioned he's a defensive minded guy. So right now he's playing with FC Barcelona. He's played 28 games, only 2.8 points per game, playing about 8 minutes a game. He's shooting 42% from 3, but that's not on too many attempts. So I don't know.
8 minutes a game. Like if a guy's playing like under 20 minutes a game, you might as well just throw the stats out because they don't mean anything, like who
Right.
knows. And he's playing with adults. Like he's playing with like, like your uncle. Like he's playing with old dudes. They're gonna beat on him, and they don't give many minutes to these young kids. So they're like those leagues. They don't care about developing youth. Like they have no interest in that.
You care about winning and building the brand over there.
Yeah, because they don't like if you're the worst team in that EuroLeague, you don't get the first draft pick. So like if you're not better like that day than the other guy, you're not playing. So it's kind of a rough league over there, but he's had some blow up moments where he's dropped, 15, 18 points in a game and you know, I know maybe they play in like lesser cups too where they play the like the JV guys play. I don't really know how it works, but he's had some flashes. I've seen some YouTube flashes recently, so we'll see.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's kind of change course. A question that I'm kind of excited to ask, and it kind of goes back to the whole Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns thing, where they asked Karl Anthony Towns a question, and Ant immediately stepped in for him and answered the question for him. So what I want to know is, do you guys in your mind or in the minds of the team? I guess so you can quantify both. Is this becoming Anthony Edwards' team, or do you think this is still Cat's team? Like has the torch been passed yet, or is it still too early? I know in the mind of some fans, definitely that it's Anthony Edwards' teams at this point. But what do you guys think? And we'll start with you, Chris. What do you think?
I would say, I mean, it's still Cat's team, I would say. I mean, most of everything goes through him. All of our plays, start usually with him, or at least he's involved with it. Edwards has, that flair, like he's the guy that will be the vocal leader. He's the guy that will be the best in the press conference. He's the guy that will speak his mind. So, like in those types of moments when Cat's asked a tricky question, Cat's always been I mean, until this year, really, but he's always been the really boring, by the book, like almost textbook answer to every question type of guy, like trying not to make a mistake. So Edwards is more the, speak from his emotions type guy. So I think that kind of looks that way. But I would say not yet. You can't have a 19-year-old kid run the team. I think D'Lo and Cat are probably more instrumental when you don't see it, like in the locker room, maybe calling guys on the side. They might be leaders like that. Um, it's just one of those things that fans don't get to see, like who's really the leader. It's very possible that it's Ricky Rubio. Like he very well may be the actual leader of this roster. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we need a leader. Like, I don't know if we need like that ringleader guy up front. I don't think we have that. And I think that's okay. I think like Edwards is gonna really vibe with some people. I think Okogie leads a lot of guys. I think Okogie and like Vanderbilt and those guys, that bench squad probably gets a lot of hype from each other. And Edwards and Rubio are tight. Like I think it can be kind of sectioned up as long as you're all on the same mission and you all, Finch is pushing the buttons.
For sure. Jared, anything to add? What do you think? Do you think it's the Towns team, or what do you think?
I think Chris nailed it. I think it's nobody's team right now. I think we have three very talented basketball players that are going to be our big three. And I don't think that Cat is going to be the guy to grab the microphone at the press conference. And whoever wants to be the guy to grab the microphone at the press conference, if it's D'Lo and he's like, hey, screw them guys, we just whooped their ass, that's whose team it's going to be. I mean, there's a core nucleus of guys that get along who are all very talented, but don't really have that I'm gonna do this to you and it's gonna happen. Nobody really has that mojo in them. I would say Anthony Edwards has most of the it factor to be that guy, but again, he's 19 years old. I'd say whoever grabs the microphone at the press conference, that's whose team it becomes, and we'll know probably 2 weeks into next season whose quote unquote team this is. But once we're winning, I don't really think it matters whose team it is, and I think we plan on doing a lot of winning next year. So
right,
it can be a 3-man nucleus.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
It's just, I mean, I think a lot of it is just personalities. I mean, if you see Cat when he's not, I mean, Cat tries to put on a show sometimes and tries to be, alpha sometimes, like, and it almost looks comical because it just doesn't fit. Like, it's just not you, Cat, like, relax. And then you see D'Lo, even in his interviews when he's talking, pretty aggressive about things. He's slunched over and he's relaxed and he's, half mumbling, and he just doesn't have that fire. So, and again, it doesn't mean that's not a leader. It doesn't mean that he's not the leader and he's just soft spoken in these interviews. Like, it's just, I think from a fan perspective, it's going to be Anthony Edwards' team. But I think from a reality perspective, it's anyone's guess in the locker room who's really the leader.
Go ahead, Jared.
I was just gonna say, like look at the Suns. Like, that was Devin Booker's team, and Chris Paul comes into town. I would say that's Chris Paul's team now. But a lot can change quickly. I mean, whoever wants to step up and be the leader is going to step up and be the leader.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of a communal system where there's no one really in charge, which is a good thing. I think they all build each other up and build something for the future. So let's see. So moving forward here, Timberwolves, like we said, get a huge win tonight. And so something that I know, Chris, you wanted to talk about, and we kind of talked about last week. Do you like D'Lo, or do you think he's better coming off the bench? Or, I mean, obviously, like I think we said last week, he should be in the starting lineup, but do you think he's better coming off the bench? What do you think, Chris?
I think the Wolves are better with him off the bench for sure. I think Rubio's making 17 million, and I'm going to bring that up because it is important. Although in reality it isn't. He's just a player. But if we have him next year, and we have, like I said earlier, Anthony Edwards bringing the ball up, and Rubio not bringing the ball up, it gets to a point where it's like, well, what is Rubio's value if he's not initiating the offense, if he's not the guy stirring the drink? So with him stirring the drink, it works a lot better when you've got, all-star Karl Anthony Towns, soon to be all-star Anthony Edwards running, Jaden McDaniels running the wings, running around Rubio. That's how you maximize Rubio's value. I don't think that D'Lo's value gets maximized anymore or minimized anymore off the bench. I don't think his game is any less effective when he comes off the bench because he's still going to close. He's still playing 30, 32 minutes a game, the same as he'd be if he started. It's just who he plays with. And I think he really looked good with that second unit, getting them some easy looks and, taking all the pressure off those guys. Like, you can't focus on Nas. Nas isn't quite at a point now where he's going to be taking on double teams and drop stepping and dunking on people very often. Like, he's not that guy. But if you have to man up on him with your second string center, he's going to abuse that guy. And you're manning up because you can't leave D'Lo. But if Rubio's out there, you can, get in Nas's lap a little bit and mess it up. So I think for the Timberwolves, we're much better with D'Lo off the bench. And I'm starting to think we're getting to the point where we might end up keeping Rubio next year. I don't know. I don't see how that works financially, but I just feel like just the way that I hear people talking, like in interviews and stuff, and Rubio talking about next year, and guys talking about him in the next year terms, seems like he's going to be here, and it'll be like a, I don't know. I mean, we brought KG back for about 10 million, and he played 8 minutes a game, and was supposed to be a leader. Turned out to be kind of a headache with the fighting with the owner stuff, but maybe it'll be like a hyper version of that where Rubio is mainly just a leader. He's getting paid 17 million and he just plays, 15, 16 minutes a game. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how we make this work. But right now, I would say D'Lo's better off the bench.
Jared, what do you think?
I don't. I think D'Lo's better as a starter. I don't, like Chris was saying, it doesn't really matter a whole lot because the minutes are what matter, and the minutes aren't going to change. But I would be very surprised to see Rubio on this team at 17 million next season. There's no value in his contract on this team if he's not going to be a superior role, and I don't think he can be with the roster that we have. So that's where it gets kind of murky. I would be surprised to see Rubio on the roster next year. I know that he's very well liked in the locker room, and like Chris was saying, he's a leader and mentor and all this and that, but the contract is just too much for this team financially. It'll be interesting, like Chris was saying. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but I would be very surprised to see Rubio on our roster come opening day.
Yeah,
I hope we
go
can.
ahead, Chris.
I hope we can move him. I just don't know what I just can't see what that trade would look like right now.
And to be fair, I think that Rubio has been playing a lot better lately. I mean, his offense is starting to come around. Yes, I did see him airball a 3 tonight, but still, he's making the occasional 3. He could get to the basket. I saw him get to the basket a couple times tonight and do that thing where he just kind of dribbles through and then off balance puts up the layup. And yeah, so I don't know. I am inclined to like Rubio. I liked him in his first round around here. I think he got too much flack for the whole not being Steph Curry kind of thing. But yeah, no, I like Rubio. So, and like I said, he feels like a good leader. So yeah, maybe it's going to be interesting to see what Rosas does with this roster going forward. So should we get to my random question of the week now?
Oh, you know it.
All right. So I kind of prefaced this in the chat a couple of days ago, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is this the most excited you've ever been about a Minnesota Timberwolves team ever? Let's say since the KG days, or maybe even more than the KG days. Is this the most excited about the potential for the future of the Timberwolves ever? And we'll start with you, Jared.
Yes. The last time I was this excited about the Timberwolves' future wasn't even a future at the time. It was Game 3 at Target Center when we had Jimmy Butler, and that's because we were in the playoffs. Like it's been a long time coming for Wolves fans to see some success, and I think we're going to see it next year. And I've been waiting for a very long time to see it. So, short answer, yeah, this team's going to be good next year, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to talk it into reality. I'm telling you, we're going to be anywhere from a 5 to a 7 seed next season.
No. You
5
hold,
seed.
yeah, hold strong with 5.
Yes, say it. You put up the 5. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Chris, I know the answer is kind of spoiled in the chat, but is this the most excited you've ever been about a Wolves team?
Well, I mean, I've been thinking about it since. I don't know. So I'm a team building future type of, that's how I look at teams and that's how I get excited about teams. So the most excited I remember being very, very excited when it was Rubio, Levine, Wiggins, Cat, and we had the 5th pick, which I thought was going to be Jamal Murray, or maybe it was 6, but I was sure it was going to be Jamal Murray, which was really exciting to me. But then we got Thibodeau, and that really killed it for me, even before he started messing everything up in my mind. And then even after that, when I thought the Dunn trade was terrible, and then we had another chance at another top 10 pick to add to that much talent, I was like, how can we have, Levine, Wiggins, Cat, and 2 top 10 picks? Like, this is so exciting. Like, if Dunn turns out to be something that I didn't think he could I thought he was bad. I thought he was going to be a bad player. But I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he is this, top 5 talent that people said he was. And if he turns into that, and we've got another 7 pick, like, holy cow. So that was exciting to me. But there's so much. I mean, I would say D'Lo is better than any of those players other than Cat at the time. And Edwards is better than any of those players, Levine, Wiggins, other than Cat. So yeah, right now, I mean, we've got the best 3 we've ever had, in my opinion. Maybe KG, Cassell, and Sprewell, but they were so, like, Cassell and Sprewell were so done. Like, that was never a team that I was very excited for. Like, it's like, cool, you'll have a run here, but like, I've always been wanting to be the Spurs. Like, give me a 15-year run at excellence. So if we get, I'll tell you on Lotto Day, if we get that top 3 pick, the answer is yes. This is the most exciting I've ever been. But just the fact that we have a GM that has a mindset and a mission and goals and works hard to get that has me probably more excited than I've ever been.
And
because I trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. And personally, for me, like, I don't know. So at the age I'm at, when like Cassell and like you were saying, Sprewell were there, I was excited about it, but I didn't have the level of fandom I was now. It was just like,
What, 6 or 7?
Yeah, some. I was probably like 8 or something. Like, I was just a rube back then. Like I didn't like. I couldn't like analyze anything and be like, oh, look at what the future we have coming up. It's just like, yay, I'm at a game. It's fun. But so yeah, I think now I will say I got super excited, and I know this was Chris's jumping off point. When we got Jimmy Butler, I was pretty excited. Like, I thought this was going to be a long-term thing. I thought we were going to be a perennial playoff team for seasons to come, and I got really into that season with like Teague and Butler and Towns and Wiggins and stuff like that. Obviously, Taj Gibson, yeah, like that was my squad. But yeah, I would absolutely say this is the most excited I've been in a long time, and I think a lot of it stems from, first of all, I mean, Anthony Edwards. I mean, like, it was one thing when we drafted Cat, and Cat's is gonna always be good, and but just to have someone around Cat like Anthony Edwards and like D'Angelo Russell, who can take the pressure off of him and win some games. I mean, we're seeing it now. We're seeing at the end of the season, when we're at full strength, we are absolutely something to be reckoned with. So yeah, this is probably the most excited I've been about the Wolves. Also, it's the first time I've ever done a Wolves podcast. So I mean, every week I get to talk about whether it was a good week, whether it was a bad week, and just like being able to potentially talk about a winner pretty soon here. I'm pretty excited. Jared, what you got?
I'm going to give you the most bizarre comparison you're ever going to hear in your entire life.
I'm ready for it.
But this is what I see when I see Rosas. This is how much I trust Rosas and his process and what he's doing and how hard he works. Rosas is like Elon Musk to me. Like, the dude works all the time. He works 16-hour days, super humble, and just is a guy you can put your faith in. And that's who Rosas is to me in terms of basketball. Like, just a smart guy who knows what he's doing and works out. And yeah, like, how could we not be excited to have that in our office?
Right. Is he? Yeah. He should host SNL next week.
Rosas would kill it. Rosas wouldn't be quite as awkward.
Yeah.
Was Elon? I didn't see it. Was Elon awkward? Was it?
It was weird, but it was the first time I watched it in 10 years. But
so I don't know. I mean, not to get completely off the vibe, but I've
No, go
listened
ahead.
to quite a few, a handful of Elon Musk's interviews, and
Mhm.
he's just a weird guy. I mean, most people that are geniuses, their brains don't work at the same wavelengths as ours. So when we are, when we're consuming what they're saying, it looks very awkward to us because they're just built different, and
Yeah.
he's just built different. Every time I've ever seen him talk, I've come away thinking, oh yeah, that guy's a different species than me. Like it's just he's just a different type of creature,
And
and
that's how
he,
Rosas is, my man. I'm telling you, like he's got that in him in a way,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I hope it works. I'm excited for it.
Yep. All right, so let's look at the week ahead. Another very winnable game coming up against the Detroit Pistons on Tuesday. Then Thursday against the Nuggets. Then we got the Celtics, and then we're gonna put a bow on the season on Sunday. So we don't one. So guys, only one more week of Wolves basketball coming your way, which is crazy to think about. The crazy season that we've had, but only one more week. We only got 8 days or 7 days left, but then we finish up with the Mavericks. So what I was thinking, you guys, is next week we kind of do like a wrap-up podcast, and then the rest of the time we can kind of talk about the NBA playoffs and stuff like that. And yeah,
that'll be fun for a lot of people that follow the league around. We'll do a little bit of a prelude into the playoffs probably next week as well. Yeah, we'll talk playoffs for a little bit and do some predictions, and we'll have some fun with it. So make sure you're here to check it out.
absolutely. And so, Chris, thanks so much for being here again.
Yeah, thank you. I see one win next week. Let's hope that's all it is.
For sure. And Jared, thanks so much for being here.
As always, I see that we can beat any team that we play right now, except for the Clippers because they always beat us. So I'm gonna give us a loss to the Nuggets, but I think the other three are winnable.
For sure.
I hope we don't, because it might backfire against us if we start winning. But
I will say this: kudos to the Knicks. They just beat the Clippers today.
I saw that.
Derrick Rose is, oh man, I love watching Derrick Rose. I hope he wins another MVP. Like, I know it's not going to happen.
25 off the bench, I think, in like 3 out of the last 6 games or something like that. He's been playing really good. So it's
like I've said in the past, I want nothing but good things for Derrick Rose. Like, he's honestly one of my favorite players. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on Facebook, and follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. This has been the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast, and as always, go Wolves.